Good morning. In today's episode of Beyond the Image Live, we're going to dive into how pitching to magazines or pitching to any media outlets has evolved over the years. All right, let's dive in. Are you tired of the endless stream of fantasy marketing and vanity metrics? Yeah, so am I. My name is James Patrick, and I'm an internationally published photographer, media specialist, and marketing strategist. I'm also a student of professional development, and like you, I've been left frustrated by all of this influencer-driven generic advice, making us think that we are just one course, conference, or manifestation away from the life of our dreams. We need to cut through this crap and move beyond the posturing, beyond the facade, beyond the image to take real action on the real work that will create the real results. This is the Beyond the Image podcast. What is going on? And thank you so much for tuning in to this most recent live episode of the Beyond the Image podcast. I spent my morning reading data studies, as one does on a Friday morning. And what I was diving into was how has pitching to media outlets shifted over the years? This was a question my editor Chelsea had posed to me the other day. Um, we were kind of going through all the pitches we had received from guests interested in being on the Beyond the Image podcast, to people interested in writing for Icon Refined, and really trying to suss out, okay, what about these pitches is standing out to us? And that really then opened up this conversation of, well, how has pitching evolved throughout the years? And I'm going to share some of the details of this study. Some of it was, I thought, fairly obvious. And then some I actually found pretty surprising until I kind of correlated it with how I've shifted my own pitching throughout the year. Because that was the second part of the question that my editor had posed to me, is how did I go about pitching to magazines and media outlets? And I think when it comes to pitching, I want to distinguish two types of pitches. There are the pitches where you have a specific idea that you are trying to get in front of a media outlet for a certain angle or story. So, for example, we did some pitches to media outlets when I won through the American Advertising Federation. I don't remember the exact name of the award, but it's something like Creative Professional of the Year. We took that specific story to different media outlets. Now, that was one side of it, that, one angle or one approach that you can have with pitching to media outlets was, I have a very specific story or focus or angle, and I'm trying to get this specific story or focus or angle published by media outlets. The second facet is, I am trying to develop a connection and a relationship with a media outlet, or, more specifically with the professionals who work for that media outlet, the journalists who work for that media outlet, so that I can become a contributor, or I can basically get my foot in the door there. So those two types of approaches I want to distinguish a little bit, because I've tended to, throughout my career, be more on the latter side, more on the side of, I'm trying to get my foot in the door. I'm trying to develop a relationship. I'm trying to develop rapport. I'm trying to create a connection. I'm trying to build trust, because I want to earn their attention, A, and then B, I want to earn the opportunity or the right to be able to position my work in front of them in the future, so that when they do have opportunities come up, that I'm first on their list when they're considering who they're going to work with. So I'll kind of volley back and forth between these, but I did want to distinguish that a little bit, because so much of what I've done has been on the latter side, which, would not work if you have a specific target or angle. I was going through my archives here in my office and pulling out some of the pieces that I had used, because a lot of my pitching was physical collateral. I was really big into physical collateral. So, those who've listened to my show a while know that I've talked about, I used to pitch with actual physical postcards of my work. And the postcard would showcase, maybe, strong image on front and then maybe some supporting imagery on the back. I'd have all my information on the back, my contact information. Then I'd write a note on the postcard and send that off to, I had around, I want to say around 100 media outlets on my list that I was trying to target. And every month I'd send a new postcard. I did this 3 years. I did postcards. And these were from, I think, the third year. I think I ran out of all the others, but I had this list that I would create, basically just sourcing different journalists, whether editors of magazines primarily, some ad agency representatives as well. And I would send them a new postcard every single month. So really on the first of the month, I just printed a whole bunch of labels and stuffed a lot of envelopes and spent a lot in postage and would mail off, let's just say 75 to 125 of these every single month. I would pump these out. Now I would have to supplement this because, there wasn't really a specific call to action on any one of these other than, I want to work with you. I look forward to working with you. I'd have to, follow up with emails, or I followed up with phone calls, or I would follow up with requests to meet in person. Whether they were like, let's say, a local publication or a local agency, I'd ask to meet with a creative director, a photo editor, a photo director to show them my work in person. But these were my way of trying to get at least seen, at least get my brand noticed, so that when an email came through or when a call came through, they might know who I was. So I was trying to use the postcards as groundwork. I just noticed these were sitting in my office. I actually did some hardcover books as well. I did 2 and back-to-back years. And I sent these out. Obviously, I didn't print 100 of these and send out 100 of those. I want to say I did 50. And the idea was that so many of the magazines I work with and editors I work with, they work in a tactile industry. So what if I showed them, just tactile prints of my work? So I shortlisted my list of journalists or magazines I was trying to pursue and got them this print book in front of them. Once again, I'm trying to lay groundwork. I'm trying to get my work to contrast or to stand out from all the other pitches that they're getting. I modified that idea at some point, and I was like, well, I'm pitching to a lot of magazines. What if I just designed a magazine? So I got with my designer and we pulled together samples of my work, and we curated I don't know how long this is. Let's say, well, it looks like 48 pages, a 48-page magazine showcasing samples of my work. And, once again, this did not get sent out to, 100 or, 120 different media professionals, but, 50 to 70, I think I did. I did a print run of 50 to 70 and sent these out. And I did 2 of them over the course of 2 years, going out to that list. And this was in addition, because I think these were going out the same year I had the postcards. So these were going out in addition to the postcards. Oh, so these weren't in consecutive years. One was 2017 and one was 2019. So I had a year gap in between. So these were going out, postcards were going out, and then I was supplementing these pitches with emails, with phone calls, with requests to meet. And one of the things I would do is I would often ask to meet with magazines in person. Now, once again, I'm saying that I'm not pitching specific ideas. I'm pitching myself as a contributor, someone who wants to work with this media outlet by showcasing them. This is what I can do for your company, for your magazine, for your agency, etc. I would actually, oh, it's been a while since I've used this. So I created, I think my lens is going to be too zoomed in for this. This is an 11 by 17 portfolio book. Look, it takes up the whole darn screen. And I printed my photos in 11 by 17 format. There you go. Oh God, it is so heavy. I traveled to New York with this thing. I ran around Manhattan with this thing in my backpack. Just back up here. Ugh. Showcasing my work. Ugh. And the idea was I wanted my work to appear as large as possible, almost larger than life. Ugh. And so when I would sit down with a magazine editor, with a photo director, and I would put this in front of them, this held a lot more physical weight as well as presence on their table. I wanted to consume the table. And that's what I did for years. I went to New York several times to shop my book around. And to set up those meetings, to schedule those meetings, I would call and I would email different publications that I wanted to meet with. And when I say different publications, I mean specific individuals at these publications. So, like for example, I met with the photo director of Men's Health one year, and I knew who that was, and I called him specifically and said, I'm going to be in New York on these dates. I'd like to meet with you and show you some samples of my work. He had remembered because I had sent him one of these, and he said, "Yep, okay, here's when I'm available to meet." And that's how we met with Muscle and Fitness, Her, Shape, Sports Illustrated, Golf Magazine, the list goes on, Women's Health, etc. So we ended up procuring quite a bit of work by doing this, and this was taught to me from a photographer that I assisted, that was a mentor to me, because that is what he did to build his editorial work. Was he traveled to New York every few years with a book of work, just like this, and would meet with different photo directors. Now, 2019, I think, was the last year I did it. It might have been 2018, somewhere around there. It's been a few years since I've done it. And the reason is I noticed the number of magazines willing to schedule an in-person meeting had gone down pretty dramatically. Whereas one year I went out, I booked, I'm just going to throw out numbers, let's say 12 to 15 meetings. The year or two later, it was maybe, 2/3 that. And that was kind of a light bulb for me that, these in-person meetings, although critically valuable and important, were going to be a lot harder to get. And so the idea of going out to New York to host these and to try to book these meetings is going to get a lot harder. And I noticed that in my own state as well, where I'd call up an agency and I'd say, I'd like to meet with you, show you some samples of my work, and the response would be, well, just email it over, which is fine. I'm happy to email it over. So that kind of segues into this report that I downloaded this morning that I was reading through, and what the report was surveying was how journalists want to be pitched to. And this is where we're going to start to bridge into, pitching specific topics, where you have a very finite angle that you're trying to position in front of media professionals. Now, as I mentioned kind of at the top of this, some of this stuff I found pretty obvious, and some of it I actually found surprising until I contrast it with what I had been shifting in my own pitches as of recently. So one of the things that I highlighted in this was that journalists are receiving, the journalists interviewed in this, and how many did they do? I can't find the number of how many they interviewed. Um, Journalists are receiving 20 to 30 cold pitches a day. A day. 20 to 30 a day. That is a lot. And then the other thing is, most of them aren't very good. That's a direct quote. Most of them are not very good. So if you're receiving, let's just say on the low end, 20 pitches a day, and most aren't good, are you really going to be giving a lot of time to reading pitches? No. We receive for my show between 1 and 5 a day. 5's like a really busy day. 1 would be, an average day. I get about a pitch a day on average of someone interested in being on my show. Most of the pitches, most that I receive are from a PR professional. And most I would agree with this. Most are not great. Something else I found interesting was a new thing that shifted is pitching to influencers. So not just pitching to what we would define as a professional journalist, but independent publishers as well. That has grown exponentially. Like my show's an independent show. My magazine's an independent magazine. But pitching to influencers as well. And this has become a new target for a lot of individuals looking to garner media. This was a very interesting quote from a news director at one media outlet. I get 300 emails a day. So extrapolate, the 20 to 30 times 10. I get 300 emails a day. Most of the time, I read the subject line and that's it. And that's a lot. That's a lot for anyone to go through, but specifically a journalist. Good pitches, what they all have in common is that they were targeted at that specific news outlet and that editor personally. The person pitching knew who I was, knew what stories I wrote, what I was able to speak to, and why that pitch was the right fit. It was tailored. It was tailored to that journalist. It was tailored to that editor. It was tailored to that writer. Um, and we've covered that, the importance of originality and specificity, and brevity, and that comes up as well. So what they ended up doing is they interviewed or surveyed a whole bunch of journalists to find some statistics on what journalists want when it comes to you pitching to them. And there were 4 categories of crafting what they consider to be a good pitch or a perfect pitch. The first was the pitch length. Now, I can tell you long pitches don't get read. And we've edified that. We say you have to be brief. Brevity is important. They actually they were able to put a word count to it, which is under 200 words. 91% of journalists wanted your pitch to be under 200 words. Now, I've gotten pitches that are pages in length. This is like 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount that journalists want to read. So 91% of journalists want pitches under 200 words. Nearly half, 46%, prefer between 1 and 200 words. 25% want it to be under 100 words. So this is further edifying the fact that they want your pitches to be brief. Next up is when to pitch. I found this interesting. This was new to me. 64% of journalists prefer to receive their pitches between 5 a.m. and 12 p.m. Eastern. So they want their pitches in the morning, not in the afternoon. I don't know why. Maybe they just want to use their afternoons to focus on work. I guess it makes sense. For me, it'd be the opposite. I probably read my pitches in the afternoon because I work in the morning. But that's interesting. Most journalists, 68%, want it before noon. Eastern, we're just, and the reason Eastern being, so many news agencies or magazines are based in New York. This actually really surprised me was the best day to send out pitches. Monday. That surprised me. Monday. Monday between 5 a.m. and 12 p.m. 57% of journalists wanted pitches on Monday. Uh, Tuesday was the second most popular day chosen, but by only 20%. So overwhelmingly, journalists are saying the best day to pitch is Monday, and specifically Monday morning. Monday morning before 12 o'clock Eastern, they want to get their pitches. Um, this we bring up a lot follow up. A lot of people are nervous to follow up. 86% of journalists say it's okay to follow up with an email as soon as 1 week after the pitch. 86%. Okay. So they're telling you you can follow up. That's okay. All right. Pitching channels. Now, this is what I found, I think, the most fascinating, but relevant to how we've adjusted our pitches. Now, when we're talking about specific pitches, like you have a topic, you have an idea, you have an angle, you have a story, you have a lead that you want to position in front of journalists, 94% of journalists surveyed want to see the pitch in their email. 94%. Email's the way to go. Now, it was the question was, do you like receiving pitches in this channel, or do you not like it? So 94% like receiving pitches in their email. 6% say they don't. I don't know where those 6% want to receive their pitches. That makes no sense to me. My guess is those 6% might be just curmudgeon-y journalists who don't like pitches to begin with, and probably said they don't like any pitches at all. Phone. 60+%, looks like 65% do not want to receive phone calls. That surprised me at first until I realized why that might be. If you are receiving so many pitches and they're not good, are you really going to be apt to be taking phone calls for even more pitches? Not as likely. The amount of journalists have actually decreased over the last few years, and the amount of people pitching has increased. One of the statistics was that there are 6 PR professionals for every 1 journalist, 6 to 1. So journalists are being pretty outnumbered. When it comes to, they reference Twitter, 48% say they do not want their pitches via Twitter. Other social media sites, 54% say they do not want pitches on social media. So do not pitch them on social media. Do not pitch them via phone. Do not pitch them via mass marketing emails. 27% say they do not like mass marketing emails. They want emails directly to them, targeted to their specific outlet, what they cover, and why, and showcasing why your pitch is relevant. I agree with all of this, with the one exception of forming communication to build relationships and to build rapport. I have spoken to lots of journalists who feel that social media is acceptable for that. I think, even some physical mailers, yeah, that's acceptable to just build some brand awareness, to send off emails that aren't even specific to a pitch idea, but just to form a connection, to build rapport. Not everyone wants to be your friend. It's not that. It's, hey, I saw the recent article, read it, really appreciated it, or saw the new issue. Here's what I liked about it, or listen to the latest show. You're not pitching, you're just trying to build rapport. And this kind of surmised with do's and don'ts, and we've covered a lot of these before. Don't send out mass pitches. We've talked about that. Make personal connections. We just covered that. We talked about brevity. Do follow up. Don't call a reporter. 66% of journalists wish PR pros would stop calling them to pitch story ideas. Okay, there you go. Don't pitch on Twitter. which is interesting because that's where so many people form these relationships. But here's what they do want: targeted pitches, pitches specific and relevant to them. If you are positioning yourself as someone who's there to help them do their job of creating the right content for their audience, they see that as valuable. And also be transparent, like put pitch in the subject line. This is a pitch, and here's what this pitch is about, right in the subject line. So they know right away what they're going to get when they open this email. I cannot tell you the number of emails we get for pitches where it's just like this long email, and I can't even find in it what the idea is, what the angle is, what the hook is, what the story is, what the pitch is, what they actually want from me. It's hard to place someone like that into my show. It's hard to place someone like that into my magazine. The more specificity you can have, the more you can show why your idea is relevant, the better chance you have of your pitches getting picked up. If you ever have questions on pitches, shoot us a message. You can text me 480-605-3254. You can comment on this video, or if there are topics you want us to cover in future sessions, let us know. Hope you are having a great day, whatever day you're listening to this. Yeah. Thanks for all the 5-star reviews on the Apple Podcast app. And we will talk to you soon. Take care, everyone.